in a game you can hear on Sunny 99.7. In the 8-player class, Audubon remains number 3 after a blowout victory in week number 1. Newell Fonda 7th in the 8-player class after a convincing win in week number 1. The St. Edmund girls cross country team had a 3rd-place finish earlier this week at the Lynx Invitational in Webster City. Fort Dodge also finished 7th on the girls' side. St. Edmund was led by senior Audrey Bemrick with an individual 3rd-place finish with a time of 21:27. The St. Edmund boys finished 5th at the Invitational. Sophomores Ronnie Oriens and Aaron Lurson led the Gales with times of under 20 minutes. Josh Meyer led Fort Dodge, finishing 7th with a time of just under 18 and a half minutes. And that's your afternoon sports update for Divine Intervention with Mike Devine on KVFD AM 1400.
A lot of things made what you're hearing possible. Glacial movements millions of years ago, annual snowmelt from the mountains, and, believe it or not, crop nutrition. Smart crop nutrition to be exact. For the person standing on this shore right now, that's what made it possible to be here and to lose himself in the serenity of it all. It came with a phosphate fertilizer called Micro Essentials from the Mosaic Company. It uses fusion technology to make a perfectly balanced granule that delivers season-long sulfur availability and uniform nutrient distribution. Every single plant in your field gets the ideal nourishment all season long. That means a healthier crop and higher yields. And it means a sense of security and that things are going okay. When you have that, you can have little moments like this, too. Experience your own with Micro Essentials. Visit your retailer or microessentials.com to learn more.
Michael Devine.
A lot of people like that show.
Because you need more than a newspaper.
Email, online, surfing the web, HTML, good buddy.
At AM 1400 KVFD.
The candidates meet in Des Moines. More from the Iowa Almanac in a moment.
I'm Michael Swanger, owner and publisher of Iowa History Journal. Our annual fall sale has begun, and now is the time to complete your collection of Iowa History Journal's collectible back issues and posters, as they are 50% off through the end of October. Also, don't forget to pick up our September-October issue, sold at Hy-Vee and Fairway. To order our back issues and to subscribe, call 515-490-7325 or visit iowahistoryjournal.com.
On September 3rd, 1936, a unique meeting of the two major party nominees occurred in Des Moines. The summer of 1936 saw continued economic stress in America. In the Midwest, that was coupled with crippling drought. A conference was held in Des Moines, attended by governors from states most affected by the drought, including Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Kansas. President Franklin D. Roosevelt attended the sessions held at the state capitol building in Des Moines. That included a meeting with his presidential rival, Kansas Governor Alf Landon. The two shook hands for the media cameras and exchanged pleasantries before a lunch and the afternoon drought relief conference. A poll released that very day showed Landon's lead over Roosevelt in rural areas widening. But as the November election approached, the tables turned nationally, and FDR won in a landslide, only losing Maine and Vermont. The two rivals for president, Franklin Roosevelt and Alf Landon, met in Des Moines to talk about drought relief on this date in 1936. And that's Iowa Almanac for September 3rd. Follow us on Twitter at Iowa Almanac. I'm Jeff Stein.
When the idea of divorce becomes a reality, you need someone on your side. If you are a man in this situation, you should consider contacting Cordell & Cordell, who has helped men navigate complex family legal issues for 30 years. Visit us at CordellCordell.com to learn more.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Des Moines area attorneys, a partner men can count on. Online at CordellCordell.com. 699 Walnut Street, 4th floor, Des Moines, Iowa, 50309.
Michael Devine.
You're very clever, my charming little friend.
With more stimulating talk radio.
All right, how you doing?
Clever enough.
Not clever enough. That's right. That happens to me frequently. Not clever enough.
Yeah, I'm Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth, and you can certainly join this program by calling 515-955-1400, or you can go to my Facebook page, either my personal page, Michael Devine, that's Devine, or my radio station page, which is at AM 1400 KVFD, or 1400 KVFD, I guess. Yeah, just 1400 KVFD. And you can also go to the Alpha Media Fort Dodge website. We're there. I think it's the news website. This is a new camera situation that we have, and it's a great thing. And really 21st century broadcasting. I'm just not all the way used to it yet, but it's coming along. I'm very excited about it. I hope you can join us in that way. A little bit later on, of course, we'll have Nevin Mulholland and Randy Coolman. I'm going to be off work tomorrow, so we won't have the Friday sports show. We will have it today between 3:30 and 4:30. Ann Meyer will be on at 4:30, and Colin Gordon of the Iowa Policy Project at 2:30. It's time for me to once again, and if I don't do it, who will do it? To ask once again, are we really being protected by the judicial branch? Not law enforcement. Law enforcement does their job. They round up the suspected party, they present plenty of evidence, and they take it to the judiciary. And a lot of times I question if we're being protected by the judiciary. Such is the case that appeared in the Fort Dodge Messenger this morning. Yes, this is where I'm actually getting my information, the Fort Dodge Messenger. We have a 17-year-old young man here that was apparently along for the ride when a man was murdered. Now, this same 17-year-old, just a short time ago, as a 15-year-old in 2017, Mr. Tate Martinson was adjudicated for second-degree burglary in a juvenile court after breaking into a garage and attempting to steal guns and ammunition. After being caught in the act with a friend by the garage's owner, Martinson and the co-conspirator, this is from the Messenger, dropped bags with guns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition and ran away, according to court documents. This is the part that's really good. This is the part that's really good. As they walked away, Martinson and the other juvenile flagged down the officer responding to the burglary and tried to tell her that they had been robbed and a cell phone was dropped at the crime scene. Now, that's quick thinking for a 15-year-old who's running from the scene of a crime. That's real quick thinking. And it's a little disturbing, actually, that a 15-year-old would think of something like that in just a few seconds. Okay, I'm on the run. I got to get out. I dropped a cell phone, or somebody dropped a cell phone. I got to get it back. So I'm going to flag down the cops and make up this story just on the fly. Just on the fly. That's an active mind, isn't it? That's a very active and creative mind. And it's also wrapped around some criminality. Mr. Martinson completed probation of that burglary and the case was closed. Boy, that was fast, wasn't it? The case was closed in March 2019. 7 months later, 7 months before, the robbery of Mr. Yakub. Since young Mr. Martinson committed the robbery before he turned 18, the judge retains the ability to sentence him to probation or suspend a prison sentence. And the reason I'm covering this is Judge Doyle here in town wants to be very, very careful. The courts have been more sensitive to young people being charged with crimes. We had, in the early part of the 20th century, ghastly cases where very young people were put to death. We evolved, and we were sentencing very young murderers in some cases to life in prison when they were 16 years old, which is also a little bit of a stretch. There was information given to us by the medical people that people who are teenagers, not surprisingly, their brain has not evolved or matured enough to really appreciate the circumstances and the decisions they made that resulted in criminal behavior. So Judge Doyle is being very careful. She doesn't want to be overturned on appeal. I understand that. But I would also say, and I can forget about Mr. Martinson as a person for a moment, If we're a society that watches young people develop over the years, and they develop in criminal ways, I mean, they're not afraid of the consequences. They're very bold, even as teenagers. Then we have a problem on our hand. How many times have we seen a terrible crime committed by a young man or young woman, say 25, 35, doesn't make any difference, or even older. And it is revealed that when they were children and teenagers, their behavior was sometimes savage and brutal, especially towards animals. Edmund Kemperer comes to mind, who kills, I don't know, a dozen co-eds in Southern California in the early 70s. His character is featured in the great Netflix series, Mindhunters. But Kemperer had all kinds of warning signs in his life. His mother was just a terrible human being. And he killed his grandparents when he was 15 years old. Edmund Kemperer killed his grandparents when he was 15 years old. Because of his youth, he was hospitalized, really, and then set free. Even though a psychiatrist said the last place on earth this young man should go is back with his mother. And that's where he was directed to go by the California Youth Authority. Don't ever think bureaucrats are experts at anything. They're champions at keeping their job. That's it. So now we have this young man with a troubled youth so far. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Where is the real science? Where's the real science? Here we are again with a conundrum coming from the medical people. The so-called medical people, I should say. If they can't be any more accurate than to make a mistake like they made with Kemperer and countless other mistakes, I'm going to have to say the supposed medical people. And they tie up our judiciary. The point I'm getting at is, how do we know? Well, it seems simple to us now that we know by previous conduct. My grandfather knew that, and he grew up on a farm in Livermore. If you catch somebody doing something a couple of times, don't be surprised if they do it again. Don't be stupid, in other words. Don't be stupid. So if you... What is the truth in this situation? What is the truth? Is the young man's brain not formed enough to be able to determine the consequences of his crimes? Or is this a pattern at a very young age? Because that's the warning point that we need to pay attention to. Not the youth, not that he's a youth or a young person or that he's immature. Is there a pattern here? And we need to make it clear to the judicial branch through our elected representatives that, yes, this is what the medical people say. And we need to be protected from a certain class of criminal who start very young and repeatedly commit serious crimes. It's not too much to ask. It's not too much to ask. No, there shouldn't be probation. No, there shouldn't be these sorts of things. These are bold crimes. And I don't believe in holding somebody's hand that long. I believe in giving a kid a break. I absolutely do. I got breaks when I was a kid, and I didn't forget either. And I learned from my mistakes. And I think that's the key. If you got a kid that has done something wrong, even something pretty nasty, he's repentant and he doesn't do it again, that's one thing. But you have other people who don't seem to learn. And the law right now doesn't seem to be able to discern which is which, and that's very troubling.
The need for risk management. Hello, I'm Megan Grebner, and this is Managing for Profit on Brownfield. Farmers had farm management plans in place well before the coronavirus pandemic wreaked havoc on the world. In this Managing for Profit, David Widmar, co-founder of Ag Economic Insights, talks about the lessons farmers can take from the wild ride that has been 2020. We'll find out more on Brownfield right after this.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
It's time for today's STEM tip. Okay, you know recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
There are several different forms of risk management farmers can use to protect their bottom line when disaster hits. But ag economist David Widmar, co-founder of Ag Economic Insights, says one of the things that 2020 has taught us is that sometimes the risks that we're best prepared for isn't the risk that we're facing.
The demand uncertainty and the commodity price adjustment, the rapid adjustment lower, was a bit of a surprise. There aren't a lot of risk management tools. Crop insurance doesn't really help in that situation, or ad hoc government programs to date haven't really helped us in this area. So it's always important to step back and reevaluate our risk management plans and our tools. I'm always reminded of the old story. Every community has a story, but property insurance sales teams always sell a lot of fire insurance after there's been a barn fire in the neighborhood. And so a lot of times our risk management's reactionary. So after 2019, we were thinking about prevent plant. And after 2020, we were thinking about crop insurance, and commodity prices, but we really need to be thinking ahead. And I think another element to this is always be scanning the horizon, right? Always be thinking about, what do I know today? How does that impact my operation? And what are some decisions that I can make as a result of that? So always be scanning and thinking about the implications and the actions that are warranted in light of that.
So should farmers just toss 2020 out as an outlier year when it comes to planning for the 2021 growing season? Widmar says not so fast.
But I think it's really important to look back in January and February in light of what we knew then and what we know now. What are some things that we could have maybe done differently? Maybe there's an opportunity to be marketing some of our commodities. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to be doing some hedging or to be pricing in some inputs. And these are all going to be different for every operation. And so I know that when I'm looking back, I saw when the commodity prices started to fall and I didn't adjust my upper range expectations enough. And so it's always hard because you make these plans and then the plans start to fall apart and we got to go back to those plans and keep updating them. And I think that's why it's really important to try to step back and learn some lessons and carry those lessons forward and help sharpen our decision-making process.
I'm Megan Rebner with Managing for Profit on Brownfield.
Could you or someone you know use help covering your Medicare premiums? Would you like to speak with someone about lowering your Medicare prescription costs? If you receive Medicare, there are Medicare savings programs available to help. These programs can assist with paying premiums, deductibles, copays, and can even cover prescriptions. To learn more, contact Lifelong Links at 866-468-7887. Again, that's 866-468-7887.
This message from the Iowa Department of Aging is supported by a grant from the U.S. Administration for Community Living.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. The sentencing of a Fort Dodge teenager has been delayed until October. 17-year-old Tate Martinson was in court earlier this week expecting to be sentenced, but the judge delayed the sentencing. Martinson was charged and has pleaded guilty to first-degree robbery. The charge stems from his role in the robbery and shooting death of 28-year-old Sioux Falls, South Dakota resident Mohammed Yoab. Allegedly, Martinson and co-conspirator Damian Chavez of Fort Dodge robbed Yoab during a drug deal, and Chavez then allegedly shot Yoab. The incident happened in October of last year on A Street West near the Tom Thumb restaurant here in Fort Dodge. Martinson is being charged as an adult in the case, but the court is evaluating several factors in the case, including whether Martinson should be sentenced as an adult. Even when someone under 18 is charged as an adult, they may or may not be sentenced as harshly as an adult. Martinson is due back in court October 13th to be sentenced. A body was found earlier this week floating in the Cedar River. Around 8:30 Monday morning, members of the Waverly Police and Fire Department recovered the body of a man from the Cedar River in Waverly. Police say the deceased man has been positively identified by a family member. However, his identity will not be released until all necessary notifications have been made. The deceased was transported to the state medical examiner's office for further investigation. The Community Health Center of Fort Dodge will offer expanded hours over the holiday weekend for COVID-19 testing. Their COVID-19 clinic, which administers a rapid result test, will be open this Saturday, Sunday, and Labor Day Monday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you're experiencing COVID-19 symptoms or have been exposed to someone who has tested positive, call 515-576-6500 to make an appointment. Week 1 of high school football is in the books, and the rankings are out for week number 2. The South Central Calhoun Titans maintained the number 2 spot in Class 1A after a win to open the season 14-0 over Carroll Kemper. The Titans will take on Greene County on the road Friday night in a game you can hear on 105.9 The Beach. The Greene County Rams are not ranked, but they are in the others receiving votes category after a convincing win over Perry in week number 1. Also in 1A, Southeast Valley, not ranked, but in the others receiving votes category after a 54-0 win at Clark to open the season. South Hamilton also in the others receiving votes category, still sitting atop the 1A poll, is defending 2A state champions OAB-CIG. They beat Ridgeview.
Is that you, Colin?
Yeah.
All right. Hang on just 90 seconds, please.
Sure.
Against Eagle Grove in week 1. They'll have their home opener Friday night taking on Clarion Goldfield Downs at Dodger Stadium in a game you can hear on Sunny 99.7. In the 8-player class, Audubon remains number 3 after a blowout victory in week number 1. Newell Fonda, 7th in the 8-player class after a convincing win in week number 1. Fort Dodge football has now found an opponent for this week. The Dodgers had to replace Mason City, who suspended football operations earlier this week after members of their coaching staff were exposed to COVID-19. The Dodgers will now take on Sioux City East. That game will be played at Sergeant Bluff High School. You can hear the game, a 6:45 pregame, a 7 p.m. kickoff Friday night on 92 Rock and online at yourfortdodge.com. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Colin Gordon of the Iowa Policy Project will be with us in just a minute to talk about the state of working Iowa. It's not good, by the way. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Robert Grebner has died. Mr. Robert Grebner has passed away. His service is tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning at Gunderson Funeral Chapel. Obituaries brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Ford Dodge. Colin Gordon is next.
Thinking about life insurance? What if you could make one free phone call and learn your best price from nearly a dozen highly rated, price competitive companies? Well, that's exactly what happens when you call SelectQuote Life. For example, George is 40. He was getting sky-high quotes from other companies because he takes meds to control his blood pressure. But when I shopped around, I found him a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $25 a month. I'm SelectQuote agent Dan Savino. And believe me, if SelectQuote isn't shopping for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-721-4880. That's 800-721-4880. 800-721-4880. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I'm Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth. Joining me now, Colin Gordon. Hi, Colin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm real good. Are you a doctor or am I the only one here?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Are you a doctor or am I the only doctor here?
No, I'm a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Not the useful kind of doctor.
Not the medical kind, huh? And you're with the Iowa Policy Project, and of course, the Iowa Policy Project is a group in Iowa City dedicated to research that they hope will affect public policy. And
so I have to remind you, Mike, the Iowa Policy Project is no more.
I didn't know that. I haven't been told that. What is it now?
We are now Common Good Iowa. We've joined forces with the Child and Family Policy Center out of Des Moines.
Really?
Yeah.
Common Good Iowa.
Common Good Iowa. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad you told me. I'll stop looking for the Iowa Policy Project. Is that the same thing with iowafiscal.org? Are they?
Well, Iowa Fiscal was the cooperation between the two groups.
Okay.
And then we just decided to throw it all into one bucket. So it's Iowa Fiscal Partnership, Child and Family Policy Center, and Iowa Policy Project are now all under the same umbrella, which is Common Good Iowa.
Most academics publish books every now and then. Do you have a book published somewhere?
I do. I've published 4 books.
4 books. Are they available through the Iowa Press or where?
They're available wherever fine books are sold.
Fine books are sold. All right. We'll check that out a little bit later. But yeah, Colin Gordon and I have spoken in the past about the state of working Iowa and issues facing working people. And I'm such a huge downer for the people at what used to be Iowa Policy Project because I'm such a cynic. But I listened and watched the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention, and I didn't hear a damn thing about working people. Certainly not about working people in rural areas. So
no, I think you're exactly right, and it's all the more surprising and damning that silence comes, just after the all of the aid for the CARES Act and the Family First Act have just expired. Because, basically what's happened and what we trace in this report is that the economy that fell off the cliff in March has not recovered at all. And yet the supports that working people relied upon, the bump in unemployment insurance, extended unemployment insurance, eviction moratoriums, those sorts of things are all disappearing.
Yeah, I keep, and neither party is responding, by the way. And I've been talking to you folks out there for this week or so. This really started with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was not a Democrat in the economic sense. By that I mean he didn't support unions at all. As a matter of fact, and he really gave up the unions to big business. And toward the end of his tenure as president, he actually was talking with Newt Gingrich on how we could privatize Social Security, which, by the way, is what Donald Trump would do as well. Joe Biden, I have no idea what the guy would do. But they don't do very much, if anything, either party to help working people.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And what are we looking at this Labor Day as we look at the state of working Iowa?
Well, I mean, so one thing we're looking at is I mean, you know, as I said earlier, the economy fell off a cliff in March. And,
Yes, sir.
you know, I say it hasn't recovered because, you know, although our unemployment rate is much lower now than it was at its peak in May, we almost hit 14%. Almost all of that reflects people dropping out of the labor force.
Sure.
So, you know, right now, compared to February, we have 60,000 more people unemployed than we had in February. And we have 130,000 people who've just given up looking for work at all.
I wouldn't know where to tell anybody to go find a job. Now, I know there's hog confinement guys out there. Well, I'm offering you a job at $12 an hour. Well, maybe that happens. I don't know. But they're more than anxious to find Mexican workers or south of the border workers to fill those positions anyway. They're easier to threaten, I guess. I mean, the state of labor in the United States of America is, to my mind, and I've read extensively on labor history, to my mind is as bad as it was in the pre-union days of the 1920s and 30s. I mean, there were horrendous labor fights all over the country in the 1930s, real savagery, and it took a strong Democratic president like Franklin Roosevelt. By the way, Bill Clinton could not carry Franklin Roosevelt or Lyndon Baines Johnson's jockstrap. He was a sellout of the worst order, and these people that we have running now are his progeny. It's just disturbing to see what this is.
I think one of the best sort of illustrations from the last couple of months of what you're talking about is what happened in Iowa's meatpacking plants when the virus rolled through.
Oh, yeah.
Because the reason that those were such hotbeds of viral outbreak is because the labor unions are gone.
Of course it is. We were a packing plant town. We had 2 packing plants here. We had 2,000 people attached to the packing plant industry, meat packing plant industry, in a town of, at the time, 30,000. And those jobs went away. They went to Storm Lake. And guess what? We had an Iowa beef plant here. And Iowa Beef came in I think, 1978 and built a brand new plant. Ronald Reagan was elected, and they abandoned that plant in 1985 and went to Storm Lake. Guess who's in Storm Lake? I'd say 90% plus are Hispanic workers. And, of course, that will not change until we go over to Storm Lake, round up some suits who know damn well they're breaking the law, and throw them in jail. But all we're going to do is go over there, round up a couple of poor Hispanic guys and deport them. It's blatantly illegal, and nobody says anything.
And, you know, I think more importantly, it was a conscious strategy to ensure that the workers in those plants were complacent and sort of lost their voice in the workplace, lost the ability to affect the speed of the line, affect the protective equipment that's being used, affect wages, job security, benefits, the whole package. I mean, the movement of meatpacking out of metro centers like Des Moines, to a degree Waterloo, but even Chicago, Omaha, and Kansas City into the cornfields was to bust the unions.
Yeah, that was Reagan's thing. That was his main thing, was to break the unions. That's why Bill Clinton was elected, actually, was to roll back the clock on some of the labor abuses, frankly, that Reagan instituted gladly. But he didn't. He didn't. He was a Hollywood president, and well, we know his story, and it's just God. But we can go to the Vincent Eagle Grove area, which is about 40 miles from where I'm sitting right now, and there's millions and millions of chickens up there. I don't know how many chicken barns are up there, and each barn holds 100,000 chickens. So you understand, Colin, that this is not small farming. This is large industrial farming. And I did a little work up there as a truck driver, and you should see some of the conditions that these Hispanic workers endure. I mean, the chicken cages are suspended, probably about 5 feet above the ground, and the workers work under the cages. What do you think chickens do most of the time? They go to the bathroom on these poor guys. It's shocking, and then they get sent home to their trailer houses, and sometimes there's a couple of families in a trailer house. I mean, if that isn't slave labor, what is?
Yeah, and the important thing about having a robust labor movement is they don't just protect their members; they raise standards for everybody else. And so it's no coincidence that at the peak of the labor movement, in the early 1970s, we passed the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which, if it was robustly enforced, would have helped workers over the last 6 months. But in fact, workers have been frontline workers, food processing workers, have been forced into circumstances where they put their lives at risk to do dangerous and work.
Do you have a paper out on this, by the way?
So the State of Working Iowa paper, it's an 8-page summary of the misery that we're in, is on the Iowa Policy Project website, soon to be Common Ground. We have completely moved everything over. And it basically analyzes what happened to the economy in March, how little recovery we've accomplished, and the fundamental sort of public policy failures on worker health and safety, on unemployment insurance, on paid leave, on public health that have that are going to leave us in this misery, unfortunately, for months to come.
I want to read a short piece to you, Colin, from something I have on my Facebook page in the Huffington Post. And the title of it is How the Democratic Elite Betrayed Their Party and Paved the Way for Donald Trump. First of all, I will give you the Republican Party position on the white working class. And this is given to us by Kevin D. Williamson of the National Review, a leading business and conservative magazine in the country. Mr. Williams scoffs at what he calls the immoral lie of the current political moment, specifically that the white working class that finds itself attracted to Trump has been victimized by outside forces. It has not. Mr. Williamson tells us that nobody did this to them, the white working class. They failed themselves. Apparently, they failed capitalism. Now, you would think we could turn to the left, to the liberals, for some sort of rebuke of Mr. Williamson. Hardly. The New Republic's Jeet Heer, who is one of their primary writers, he sees Mr. Williams' piece as a return to the National Review's founding aristocratic conservatism, which has most recently been obscured by a populist mask. Yes, we love the aristocratic conservatism, but we really don't like that populism. Another writer for the New Republic, well-known and longtime left of center magazine, Jonathan Chait, said Mr. Williamson is exposing the perverse moral logic of hardline libertarians. Yeah, the marketplace hasn't failed the white working class. The white working class has indeed failed capitalism. That is the way the elites of left and right see us, see workers, especially in rural Iowa, especially.
Yeah, I think that's pretty damning. I mean, it's certainly, another way to look at it is, and you alluded to this when you talk about the difference between Roosevelt and Johnson and Clinton and moving forward, is every election cycle we're just moving the goalposts.
Yeah,
we're moving the goal. And both political parties are shuffling beside each other to the right. I mean, the idea, 4 years ago, that we would look approvingly on the Bush presidency. Or the idea, right now, Nixon looks like Joseph Stalin. Certainly the idea that Biden is, on the far left of our political spectrum, is in some respects a frightening thought. I think he's a good person. I hope he wins the election, but he's representative of a sort of Southern pro-business Democratic Party, very much in the Bill Clinton mold.
Oh yeah, the Democratic Party is pro-business. That's why Joe Biden is their nominee. They were the Wall Street financiers who, by the way, financed both parties. They were afraid of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. As a matter of fact, they despised them. And the Wall Street financiers told the National Democratic Party, if you nominate either one of those two, you will not get any money from us. The next thing we knew, there was a big push for smoking Joe Biden. And they did save Biden in South Carolina. And they pushed him toward the nomination, even though the Democratic Party at large really favored Warren and Sanders. So now we have Joe Biden. And it's all about money. And I don't have the kind of money to influence the Iowa Democratic Party or the National Democratic Party. I don't. And that's why we can have national conventions in a presidential election year and not hear a single damn word about labor, because they are in thrall of money. Colin Gordon's our guest. He's with what is now called Common Good Iowa. It used to be the Iowa Policy Project. I found the email from Mike Owen. He sent it to me earlier today. I just didn't catch it, announcing the name change for the Iowa Policy Project to Common Good Iowa. Is the 8-page paper that you wrote on the subject of labor in Iowa around Labor Day weekend, is that on the Common Good site, or is that on the Iowa Policy Project site?
On the Policy Project site. The
on the
Common
policy
Good site isn't quite up yet, I don't think.
The Common Good site?
Yeah, it's not quite up yet. So if you go to iowapolicyproject.org,
there it is.
You'll find that report. Yeah.
Okay, good enough. You know, one thing that's bothered me over the many years, you and I have talked about it, I've talked about it with David Osterberg and Mike Owen, is wage theft. It happens all the time in Iowa. And it happens all the time in Iowa because there are people who steal from their workers blatantly. And if you call the police, they'll say, well, this is a civil action. In other words, there's no crime attached to the theft of wage theft. It's just a civil dispute.
Yeah, it's a serious problem, and it's a problem, that is faced by workers, the most disadvantaged workers. It's a problem faced by workers who are intentionally or unintentionally misclassified as independent contractors. It's a problem for low-wage white-collar workers. People who manage fast food restaurants, things like that. It's it cuts across the economy. And we estimated when we did a sort of deep dive into this a few years ago that it's about $600 million a year in Iowa. And so that's not only coming out of workers' pockets. That's coming out of payroll taxes. It's coming out of state and local tax receipts. It's costing everybody.
Well, and I think the people responsible for this, very wealthy Democrats and Republicans, are untouchable now. I mean, the churches, even the Protestants, get on bended knee anymore to a few of their very wealthy parishioners. If they start talking as the Catholic Church did when I was young, talked about the poor and the need to support the poor. I mean, one of their wealthy congregants will walk up to the priest or the minister or whoever and say, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that I'm mistreating my workers. I don't want to hear that my workers are actually slaves, 21st century slaves. I don't want to hear that. Knock it off, or I'll take my family somewhere else and we'll contribute to a pro-business church. It happens, believe me. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. They're untouchable. I mean, we can't touch them through the political parties. The Democrats left us long ago and became a part of a group that apparently likes trigender business executives or something. I have no idea what they want today, but it isn't anything that has to do with labor.
No, and I think if we can end on a somewhat optimistic note.
Thank you.
We're in a pretty deep right now, but we are seeing action. Not so much in Iowa, but certainly in other states, are starting to move on areas of policy that were sort of exposed by the virus and the crash that came with it. So, unlike the places like Virginia are passing sweeping new laws on worker health and safety. People are looking quite seriously at modernizing their unemployment insurance systems so that they're actually able to pay out claims when there's a big demand. And so that, the 40% of workers who don't qualify at all for unemployment insurance have some sort of safety net to fall back on. So I think we will see movement on a number of these issues. I mean, it's gratifying that some pretty conservative settings, like Missouri, went ahead with Medicaid expansion in this recent election cycle, because I think people understand that in the absence of a robust organization of working people, that is the labor movement, you need high labor standards and good social policies.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Colin, thank you for the uplift at the end, because I'm hopelessly cynical, as you know. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Colin Gordon of what was formerly the Iowa Policy Project, now Common Good Iowa.
You've probably seen the political ad where real estate executive Teresa Greenfield says,
I'm Teresa Greenfield, and in Iowa, we take care of our own.
But really, Teresa Greenfield takes care of herself. As a big shot executive, Greenfield helped run a home building company into bankruptcy, defaulting on loans, putting the company $29 million in debt, and leaving workers in the lurch. And what did Teresa Greenfield do? She jumped ship and landed a cushy new job. A job where Greenfield personally signed the notices to kick small local businesses to the curb and tear down their stores to make way for a big foreign-owned chain store. Teresa Greenfield always puts herself first and leaves Iowa workers behind. It's time we leave Teresa Greenfield behind. Senate Leadership Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.senateleadershipfund.org.
Always great to talk with Colin Gordon. It's 2:59. Sam Clovis is next, and we'll have Big Nevin Mulholland and Randy Coleman to talk sports, and Ann Meyer. She'll be in about 4:35. All right. What a beautiful day. I'm taking tomorrow off. Yes, I am. I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Cordell.
I'm Dave Ramsey. Join me every Monday through Friday afternoon from 5 to 8 p.m. on AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
This is a Fox News alert, a 1,000-point plunge on Wall Street. I'm Lisa Brady. A day-long sell-off got worse in the final hour of trading, blamed at least in part on uncertainty about the potential for a coronavirus vaccine this year. This after public comments by Dr. Anthony Fauci seeming to downplay the CDC's efforts to have states be ready to distribute a vaccine sooner rather than later.
CDC Director Robert Redfield sent a letter to the nation's governors urging them to streamline regulations for opening potential vaccine distribution centers, and if necessary, consider waiving requirements that would prevent these facilities from becoming fully operational by November 1, 2020.
Fox's Jonathan Seri. Well, the Dow dropped over 1,000 points at times in the final hour, but at the closing bell, down 810 points. The NASDAQ plunging more than 4%, the S&P over 3%, a sell-off in tech shares also fueling today's dive. 2 days after criticizing the president's visit, Joe Biden goes to Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Fox's Jeff Manasso is live.
Lisa, a community forum here at Kenosha's Grace Lutheran Church, where former Vice President Joe Biden heard from people who live here about their hopes and their concerns following the police shooting of Jacob Blake and the destruction that followed.
Regardless how angry you are, if you loot or you burn, you should be held accountable as someone who does anything else. Period.
Biden also met with Jacob Blake's family, though no plans to survey the millions of dollars of destruction that led to over 250 arrests. President Trump also visited the city on Tuesday, calling for peace and law and order. Lisa.
Thanks, Jeff. President Trump holds an event tonight in Pennsylvania as he doubles down on a suggestion that mail-in voters verify their vote on Election Day and possibly vote in person if the ballot wasn't counted. Election officials in North Carolina slamming that idea as an effort to sow chaos. America's listening to Fox News.
So who is your wireless provider? AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile? The average person is saving $400 a year by switching to Pure Talk USA. Pure Talk is on the same network, same towers, just 50% off in terms of price. Right now, get unlimited talk, text, and 2 gigs of data for just $20 a month. Switch to Pure Talk today. Now, from your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Pure Radio. That's pound 250, Pure Radio, Pure Talk, USA. Simply smarter wireless.
Hello? Hi, I'm calling on behalf of the Mice Nest. Mice Nest? Yes, Mice Nest. It's a nest of mice. They finished chewing through your RV wiring, so the fire should start soon. Can we cancel that? Oh, sorry. Once scheduled, they can't really stop because they're mice. A nest of them.
RV owners can't schedule when things go wrong on the road. That's why there's Progressive, a leader in RV insurance.
Oh, and if you could stay on the line for a quick survey.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
The Trump administration takes the next steps toward withdrawing from the WHO, which the president has criticized, along with China, for the handling of the initial coronavirus outbreak.
The U.S. will leave the World Health Organization in July of next year without paying millions of dollars in dues. The State Department says the money will be reprogrammed to partially pay other United Nations assessments.